Well, closing out a series called 33 Degrees today, and now hopefully it's the last time we see 33 degrees outside too. But before we jump in, I just want to remind you, we have Easter services in 2 weeks. Easter's already here. So the way we're doing it this year, we have 4 worship experiences you could choose from. We have Thursday night, we have Friday night, and 2 on Sunday. They're all identical. So we're just trying to make as many opportunities as we can for people. And what I wanted to encourage you on is be praying about, thinking about who you're going to invite to that, because Easter service is one of the best times of year to invite somebody, and we're an inviting church. That's kind of who we are as a church. It's what we're about, is reaching out to those people who maybe don't know Jesus yet, maybe people who haven't been to church ever or in a long time, and I want you to be thinking about that, praying about that. And I always say, like, hey, don't just throw an invite at them. Offer to pick them up. Offer to sit by them. Offer to buy them lunch afterwards. Bribe them, whatever you have to do, because God does something with that. So 2 weeks. All right, so we have been here having a conversation as a church family here for the past month, and we don't normally do this, but it's been an internally focused conversation, and this is the final week of that series, and I know some of you are like, yay, and I'm like, shut up. But the reason we've been talking about this for a month is because this is really important for us as a church, for where we're at right now and where we feel like God is leading us. So if this is like your first time here or you're newer to Mosaic, I just want you right now to kind of turn off that part of your brain that says he's talking to me, because really I am talking directly to people who call Mosaic home. Now, if you're here and this is your first time, I'm just super happy you're here. You get to listen in. You get to kind of hear where we're at as a church, where we've come from, some big stuff that will help you make a decision if you ever want to come back. But I don't want you to feel any kind of pressure from what we're talking about today. Does that make sense? All right, if you call Mosaic home, if this is your church home, lean in. This is a really important week for us, okay? I want to start by sharing one of my biggest fears, with you. I want to do that by reading a list. See if you can make the connection with this list. You ready? Zenith, BlackBerry, Circuit City, Borders, Yahoo. You got it yet? Blockbuster. You make the connection? You're like, that sounds like an awesome weekend in the 90s, right? Right. Well, all of these companies were, at one point, top of their respective fields, right? These companies, they were monsters of industry, giants, leaders, innovators. Every single one of those companies was amazing. Zenith was one of the top electronics manufacturers in the United States. Matter of fact, Zenith invented the TV remote. Isn't that crazy? If you were born in the 80s and 90s, you were the TV remote, right? And then they invented that, so thank you, Zenith, for that. BlackBerry controlled 43% of the cell phone market at one point. Can you believe that? 43% of all cell phones were BlackBerries, phones with buttons. What's going on with that? Circuit City, second largest electronic retailer in the United States behind Best Buy forever, 700 stores, $12 billion in annual revenue. They were a monster. Borders had 1,200 stores nationwide, $3 billion in revenue. They sold these things called books. I don't know if you remember those. Yahoo, get this, Yahoo, early 2000s, Yahoo was the most visited website on the entire internet. Yahoo. Isn't that nuts? How many of you still have a Yahoo email account? Stop it. Get rid of it. What is wrong with you? And Blockbuster, we all know Blockbuster, 9,000 stores, gave us the magic of VHS tapes every weekend. It was such an amazing thing. Now, every one of these companies was top of the top, was. And none of them are now. None of them are now. And every single one of them actually crashed pretty hard. They are either non-existent or a shadow of their former selves. And a guy named Jim Collins, I don't know if you know who that is, business guru, kind of a genius guy, he wrote a book called How the Mighty Fall. And he studied specifically some of these companies and why they failed. And what he did is he recognized that with every single company that reached a giant peak and then ended up falling, they all followed this same pattern. And he actually wrote about it in the book. It's really interesting. And they all follow these certain way that they fell. It starts with the word hubris, which, if you don't know, it means they got cocky, they got arrogant. And then that led to a complacency. And then that led to denial of things that are actually not going very well. And then once they got so bad that they couldn't deny it anymore, they started grasping for salvation. But at that point, it was usually too late. They were already too deeply into the toilet bowl, and then they would die. And so the way that goes down is, they would get really big, they would be really successful, and that would cause the leaders of the company to assume that future victories were guaranteed. They had a false sense of invincibility. We're just going to always be this big and this successful. And that of course, easily leads to a complacency. Like they stopped innovating, they stopped hustling, they stopped, like with the hunger that got them to where they are, they just stopped. And then when things started to decline, they denied it. They refused to look at the future and kept looking at the past and how awesome they used to be. But then, when things got bad enough, they would desperately try to make big decisions to fix things, and it was too late. Now, what I thought was fascinating when you look at this pattern is you could overlay it over like a lot of things, like maybe even like an individual career. You could get really successful as a human being and you could be doing really well, and then you could get a little cocky about it, and then you could stop doing the things that made you awesome at your career. And you could just rest on the fact that you were awesome at one point, and then things would start to go poorly for you, but you might be tempted to be in a sense of denial, like, I'm still that. But then the decline would continue because you're refusing to change, and then you'd realize, and you try to make some changes, but then it might be too late, and then you could be in trouble in your career. You could also lay this over a marriage. You ever thought about that your marriage could be really, really good, really, really strong, really, really awesome, and then you could get a little cocky about that, and then that cockiness would just kind of lead to we're good. And you're complacent. You stop doing the things that made it awesome. You stop doing the little things here and there, and it starts to level off. And then when things start to get bad, you kind of go into that state of denial. It's not that bad. We're still okay. And you just kind of keep letting it go down and down and down until then you realize, we better make some big changes. And usually by the time people realize it's time to make big changes, it's almost too late. This pattern is really interesting. It describes a lot of things, but it's also a pattern that a church could fall into. That a church could have things go really well, get a little cocky, feel invincible, get complacent, the wrong kind of content, then deny the decline. Churches are amazing at denying a decline. You know what churches do? Have you ever been in a church that's declining? You know what they usually do? They spiritualize it. People just don't love Jesus these days. And crazy as this is, churches will tend to, instead of going forwards, they'll try to go backwards. Well, we need to get back to, having potlucks and VBS, and that'll be the thing so they try to go backwards in order to go forwards, and that almost never works. And then by the time they realize that it's serious and they're actually ready to get serious and make some real changes that would actually help them, maybe we need to really, for real, invest in the next generation, make some decisions, make some changes. It's usually too late, and a lot of churches are dead and don't know it. I bet if you've been to some other churches, you could probably pick where in this pattern they fall. I know a lot in denial, I know a lot grasping for salvation. My big fear, though, is that we could end up here. And I just want to show this, if you're newer, you're like, whoa, what's going on? Everything's going so amazing right now. So amazing. Everything's up and to the right. What we're experiencing as a church is so cool right now. It is so cool. But I worry that that's kind of how this goes. You start to have things go really well, and then you get a little cocky. You get a little arrogant about it. And then you get complacent. That we could lose that hunger to see people come to Jesus. We could think that fatal thought, well, this is good enough. And then as we started to decline, we would go into denial and then grasp for salvation. My worst nightmare, listen, this is all concisely in one sentence. My worst nightmare is to pastor a church whose best days are behind it. My worst nightmare is to pastor a church that has to look backwards for good things. That horrifies me. I cringe on the inside when I think about it. Like that my job would become managing a slow decline. Ugh. Can we make a deal? If we get to that point and we just see this thing kind of going down, and if we all start to believe that our best days are behind us, not ahead of us, can we just kill this thing? Let's just decide now. We're just going to kill. Here's what we'll do. We'll sell everything and we'll give it to a church whose best days are ahead of it. We'll invest in a church that actually has some good days ahead, who's actually still reaching people, actually still seeing God move, and we'll just give everything to them, and maybe we'll go join that church. Can we? All right, we're doing that. So I don't want to do that. Again, like the thing that I think about, like I have this vision of being like an old guy sitting in like a Sunday school class someday, 20 years from now, like, do you remember when we used to like baptize all those people and stuff? We don't even know where the baptismal is now, but like, we remember when the days were so awesome? Like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that. I actually want to say I kind of refuse to be that guy who talks about the glory days and doesn't have anything better ahead. So that's my fear. And I know you might, if you're familiar, like, what are you even talking? We're not even anywhere near that. And you're right, we're not. But Jim Collins wrote this whole book about this pattern and how hard it is to get out of this pattern. And the further you're in the pattern, the harder it is to get out of it. So basically, the conclusion he came to is the best way to get out of this pattern is to never enter the pattern. Like, don't ever even start this, and then you won't have to figure out how to get out of it. We want to make decisions and hold on to principles that keep us far from this. We got to know who we are. We got to know our why. So you know, if you go here, if you walked in, you know on the wall out there it says we are a church for people who don't think church is for them. And you might wonder, like, well, where does that come from? Well, I have a Microsoft Word document saved to my desktop called Why We Do What We Do. I mean, it's right down here at the bottom. And I will open it up and read it every once in a while. I read the whole thing. And it's just verses. It's just Bible verses that kind of articulate who we are as a church and really kind of are the source for where we would get this sentence that we're a church for people who don't think church is for them. And I want to read you some of them. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. It's a book. Luke 19:10. For the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. That's Jesus talking about himself, saying his mission on this earth was to seek and save the lost. That was his mission, and I believe that's our mission, that we are all about trying to seek and save those lost. We're trying to find the people that don't know Jesus and bring them to him. That is our heartbeat. If that was Jesus' mission, that needs to be our mission. Luke 5:31 and 32, Jesus answered them, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners and need to repent. I like to think about this place as like a hospital for sick people. We are all about having people come in who don't know Jesus yet, whose lives might be a little bit messy, and we want them to be here because we believe that sometimes you have to decide if you belong before you believe, which means they bring their mess with them. And we as a church are collectively saying we're okay with that. We want that because we want to be this thing that Jesus is talking about. They need Jesus and we want to bring them to him and we can give them space to have that happen. So this is our heartbeat. Matthew 4:19, and he said to them, follow me and I will make you fishers of people. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples. The first disciples, they're out there fishing for fish and Jesus is like, hey, that's cool, but let's like switch one thing, the thing you're fishing for. And he says, hey, now your heart's gonna be to go out and seek out people who need to hear the message of Jesus. That's our heartbeat. 1 Corinthians 9:22 and 23. When I am with those who are weak, I share in their weakness, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessing. Paul's saying that, hey, his whole huge part of his mission was to meet people where they are. He didn't want to make them come to him. He met them where they are, whether they're weak, strong, messed up, not messed up. Wherever they were, he was going to meet them. He was going to build the bridge from them to Jesus. He would do whatever he could to see that happen. And that's what we're about as a church, to meet people right where they are. 2 Corinthians 5:11, because we understand our fearful responsibility to the Lord, we work hard to persuade others. God knows we are sincere. I hope you know this too. I love that. He says this fearful responsibility. Paul knows that this thing that he has, this relationship with Jesus, the forgiveness that he got from God, it's such a valuable thing that it's also a responsibility now that he needs to share it with others. He can't not share it with others. It's a fearful responsibility. And I love the word persuade. I want to be a persuasive church, a church that is persuasive in word and in deed, that when people see us, they want to be like, hey, what is it about you? What is it about that church? I want that. I want to be persuasive. And then the last one, this one's actually written really big under the carpet at our very, very old building. First one we met at, Acts chapter 18, verses 9 and 10. One night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision and told him, "Don't be afraid, speak out, don't be silent, for I am with you. No one will attack or harm you, for many people in this city belong to me." I love that. So God's like talking to Paul about the city that he's in, but I believe this is true of every city that believers are found in, that God's saying, hey, there's people there that belong to me. And he's specifically saying, hey, don't be quiet. Don't be silent. Don't hold this in. Don't keep it to yourself. There's something about what you have. You need to share this as many people as possible. And there's many people in this city, in the one we're in right now, that belong to Jesus, and it is our job to introduce them to him. These verses are why we do what we do. These verses are the source of us being a church for people who don't think church is for them. These verses drive us, they propel us, they shape us, they fuel us. This is who we are. I don't want to stop being that, you know? I think this is an essential part of our DNA. Now, we've been having a conversation here these past 4 weeks. It's a big one. And what we've been asking, if you've been here, and again, I'm speaking to the Mosaic Church family here, if you call this church home, what we've been asking is for you to regularly financially support what God is doing through Mosaic. That's what we've been talking about. And if you already do that, we are asking you to prayerfully consider increasing that. That's between you and God, like what's God saying to you. But what we're saying is for us to do the thing that God's called us to do. And we believe that's a big mission. We believe that's an important mission. There's lots of people who don't know Jesus yet. We're after that thing, and the mission is so big that we need everyone who calls Mosaic home to intentionally, regularly, and in an ongoing way give through Mosaic to the mission of Jesus. And this is week 4. And I've had a lot of people ask me if I was like uncomfortable talking about money. And I get how you could think that I am. I'm actually not super uncomfortable talking about money. There's one part that I don't like. And it's it's if, I'm just laughing to myself because this has happened like 3 times this weekend. It's when I'm talking about money and it's your first time here. I hate that. And I want to say personally, super sorry if this is your first, because I just hate that story, you know, like, oh, you came to Mosaic, what was it about? Money. Like, that's just lame, you know? Especially if you're still newer to the faith, or maybe even having some questions about Jesus, not even a follower of Jesus yet, for this to be your first interaction with church, I hate that. That's lame. I pray and hope that you come back because this I don't want this to be your first interaction. If you put that aside, and I'm just talking to my church family here, if I'm just talking to you, if you call Mosaic home and this is us, I want to be really bold about this. I need you to know that if you call Mosaic home, I'm excited about this. I don't want to hesitate. I don't want to come off like I'm being timid. I believe in what we're doing here. I believe that God is moving. I'm not embarrassed. I think this is the best thing you'll invest in your entire life because it lasts forever. So I feel like I'm inviting you into something. I don't want to hesitate on that at all. And what we need to understand as a church is that our generosity is going to set the boundaries for what we're able to do. Do you see that? That our generosity kind of sets the fence around the thing, and that's about what we can do. It's just kind of the way it is. And what we're saying in this series is that we feel the edges right now. We're pressing up against things, and we know that God wants to do something bigger than this, and we want to expand that. And that is a good thing, a really good thing. But here's what I'm worried about. You ever heard of the bystander effect? Bystander effect's a really fascinating little thing. It's a social psychological thing where individuals are less likely to help someone in need when others are present as opposed to when they are alone. So here's an example. So let's say you were in a room with somebody and they fell over and they couldn't get back up. If it's just you and them and they fall over, you're all over it. You're like, oh man, how can I help you? Like, and you're trying to help them up. It's immediate. You're without question, you're helping them, right? Unless you're a little bit of a sociopath. or you were the one that knocked them over. I don't know what you did or they did. but it's like automatic, right? But same situation, but there's a room full of people and they're falling down and they need your help. you are significantly less likely to jump up and help them. Significantly less likely. You're like, I know you're like, now am I a horrible person when other people are around? Here's why. The psychologists say the reason why is something called the diffusion of responsibility. So when it's just you and another person, 100% of the responsibility to help them up falls on you. You are the one who's going to help them up. But when you're in a room full of people and somebody falls over, the responsibility to help them up kind of gets diffused over the whole group. So the more people, the less personal responsibility you feel, and you think this thought: somebody will help them, right? Somebody's got that. Somebody's going to do that. And you hold back. And maybe a ton of different thoughts go through your mind, especially if you're an introvert. You're like, okay, somebody knows them, somebody's closer to them, somebody's better than that. Like, somebody would be better to help them up than me. Like, you have all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of reasons, but you won't step into that. Now, you experience this in a ton of other places in your life, a ton of other places. So let's say hypothetically you have 4 kids. I don't know why I picked 4. Hypothetically, you have 4 kids, and you put something on the steps to go upstairs, and you put the thing on the steps because you want them, because everybody knows in the whole house that the thing belongs upstairs and it needs to go upstairs, and you put it on the steps so that someone of the 6 would take it up the steps. And it sits there for days, weeks maybe. And if you don't do it or your spouse doesn't do it, it never moves. It just becomes a part of the steps. Now, the reason for that, besides the fact that kids are terrible and they don't care, is it's the diffusion of responsibility. The thought is, somebody's going to do that. Somebody will do it. Not me, somebody. You've also experienced it if you've ever had car trouble on a busy road. You're actually more likely to get help on a secluded road than a busy road. If it's a secluded road and one car drives by, they might be like, oh, I'm the only one. They might need help. But if it's a busy road, everyone's thinking the same thing. Somebody's going to help them. Somebody will do that. You've also experienced this in remember group projects back in school? You had a group project and everybody had a job to do. What happens in those, the reason kids don't give their best effort is the bystander effect. It's the responsibility for the thing has diffused over a group and nobody gives their best effort because everybody's thinking somebody's going to step up. The bystander effect. And one of the places on the earth where the bystander effect is the worst is in churches. Because we're a group of people, and the responsibility gets diffused over all of us. And here's the scary part. It gets worse as a church gets bigger. It gets worse as a church gets bigger because the responsibility continues to diffuse to more and more people, and you personally feel less of it because look at all these people. And that's scary to me because we are getting bigger and bigger, and I can feel the responsibility diffusing, and I can feel the bystander effect starting to come in, and that's scary. And here, so let me give you some sentences of what it would sound like to me. And I admit that this one I'm being a little sensitive to this, but if you would say a sentence like this to me, I would immediately have something going on in my soul, and I'd be like, oh. So here it is. If you would say something like, man, that's really cool that the church is going to start an intern program. If you said that, I'd hate that. And you're like, what the heck's wrong with you? What would you hate about that sentence? Here's what I don't like about that sentence. When you said, that's really cool that the church is going to start an intern program, I would want to say, who? Who's the church? Who are you talking about? You know what I mean? I'm just a part of it. Bart, aren't you? And so a better sentence, and I know I'm being really nitpicky here, but I'm super sensitive to this. If you said the sentence, hey, it's really cool that we are starting an intern program, that I would be like, yeah, let's go, let's take that hill together. I want to do that. But if you say the church, and you might not, you might just be saying it you might not even mean what I think you mean. I'm being way over the top here. But for me, that has a little bit of the bystander effect in it because it's like, hey, it's really cool that the church is doing that. Not me. And it feels like there's a degree of separation in that. Another sentence that I would say has the bystander effect kind of built into it would be like, my contribution isn't going to make much of a difference. That reeks of this idea that responsibility has diffused so far, and you're looking around going, well, somebody else is going to handle that could handle it better than me, right? I can see what they drove in, I see what they're wearing, I see where they live. They're going to help more than me. My contribution isn't going to make much of a difference. And you're assuming that you're not going to make an impact because of how much responsibility has been diffused over everyone. And you need to know that what we feel called to is so big that can't be true. That can't be true. And the reason the bystander effect is so like insidious and kind of sneaky is because it has a bunch of stuff built into it, right? You could be sitting there as a church family here and you could be like, I hear what you're saying, Adam. You've said it for 4 weeks. I can't help but hear what you're saying. I know it. I've got it down. I even agree with it. I'm even excited about it. But somebody else is going to do that, right? See how you're like 95% there, it feels right, and all that's good, but that one last step, and the one last step is you're not owning it. You don't feel like you're a part of it. Somebody else is going to do it. And I get it. The more people, it just does seem like my contribution doesn't matter that much, but man, I'm asking you to not like fall victim to that. Don't do it. Don't allow some psychological trick in your brain cause you to step back. Because like I said last week, we don't have a sugar daddy here at Mosaic. We don't have one of those. I kind of wish, but no, we don't. We don't have a hedge fund manager. We don't have a real estate mogul. We don't got any of that. When God calls us to something as a church, we all have to get our shoulder underneath it. So what I'm asking is get your shoulder underneath it. Don't do the thing standing off to the side, be like, oh, it looks pretty heavy. I'm eating a snack and watching you guys. Like, don't do that. We need your shoulder underneath it. Because we believe the thing that God has called us to is so big that it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us. And I got to tell you, like when I look into the future of what God is doing here, I get so excited. It is so cool what God is doing here, the things we're talking about moving forward. And I've shared them with you every week. And I just want to remind you one more time, the 3 things that we see that God is doing here at Mosaic that we're looking forward in the future is we want to train future leaders, we want to invest in the next gen, and we want to prepare for multiplication as a church. Those are amazing things to be looking at as a church. But I don't just want to say them, I want you to like feel the impact of that. Can you like turn your imagination on a little bit and actually think through what these things would actually do? Do you realize the amount of lives that will be changed if we can get a vibrant internship program started here? Do you realize that? And I know you might be thinking, well, yeah, the interns' lives will change. Yeah, they'll end up with a 4-year degree, 4 years experience at a church. That'll be amazing. The intern's life will be changed. But what I'm saying is not just the intern, but every life that we impacted by the intern. Like think about that. Every church that an intern goes and gets a job at, every ministry, every sermon that an intern will eventually preach, there's going to be an impact in that. What we're talking about here, like our choices here as a church are going to ripple for decades out. This is huge. Do you realize the difference it makes in a teenager's life when they go to camp every summer as a teenager? A camp where they encounter God, and that, like, I know you're like, well, it's just like one little degree difference. Yeah, 1 degree difference in a teenager's life over time turns into a crazy thing. So the impact that's going to be made by sending these kids every summer is going to be huge. It will alter the trajectory of their lives. Do you feel the weight of kids ministry? Like what's happening right now downstairs? The seeds of faith that are being planted every week. Do you realize that every week in that basement down there that we are like building the future? I want to change the name of kids ministry to Future Builders because that's what's happening. We are building the future. These kids are going to end up different because of the influence that we are having on them. And then when it comes to preparing for multiplication, can you see the people who would come to faith have their hearts and lives transformed if we as a church can continue to take steps forward and prepare for the multiplication of this thing that God is doing? Can you see that? Do you see it? So important. Now, I've gotten questions. They're not exactly this kind of a question, but they kind of have this feel to them. Where you might be sitting there thinking, okay, so the church is growing, things are good. But like, how far are we going to take this, Adam? How far are we going to take this? Like, what's the end game here as a church? Like, when is enough enough? Like, I've heard something like that. And I want to say from a certain angle, I think I understand what you're saying. I think I understand the question. Like, Jesus said something about being content. Shouldn't we be content as a church? Okay, I think I get it. But can I make an observation? If you're thinking that or feeling that a little bit. When it comes to this question of like, well, how far are we going to take this? I have never heard anyone ask that question about the Red Cross before. You know that? Never heard anybody say, how you guys just keep helping every wildfire, every flood, you keep helping people. When's enough enough? I've never heard that. Why don't you let them figure out the next wildfire, just let them figure it out themselves. Never heard anybody say that, ever. Never heard anybody say that about the Habitat for Humanity. Right? You just keep building houses for people who can't afford them. When are you gonna be content? You know, when's enough enough? Never heard it. Never heard it for St. Jude's Hospital, right? You just keep helping kids with cancer. Are you gonna ever just stop that? You know, like when is enough enough? Never heard it. Never heard it. But we ask it of a church. And that worries me. And the reason it worries me is because like built into the question then is a problem, because the reason you don't ask it about the Red Cross and about St. Jude's Hospital is because you see the need and you see the impact of those things, right? You see the need and you see the impact. The importance of their mission is kind of obvious. And the ongoing nature of their mission is kind of obvious, right? Disasters keep happening. The Red Cross has to keep doing. Kids keep getting cancer. They keep happening. Like the mission continues because it just is, right? But if you're asking it of a church, then does that mean you don't see the importance of our mission? That's the part where my brain just disconnects and I don't even understand the question. That's where, like, from an angle, I get it, but like, for the most part, when I'm just facing forward, I don't know what you're saying. Aren't we making an eternal impact here? I mean, if I'm reading the book right, you know that book that we follow, 66, all put together, a Bible thing? Yeah, like, if I'm reading that right, we're doing an eternity thing here. We're doing a heaven and hell thing. We're doing a forever thing here. This is like the most important thing in the world because it just ripples out into eternity. So if you say, well, how far are we going to take this? What? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? So I want to quote like a really weird movie for a church service. Boondock Saints. Did somebody just groan? Listen, I'm not endorsing the movie. Not writing a review. Okay, somebody's clapping. All right. Now you're too excited. All right, we got to find right in the middle. Right at the end of the movie, El Duce, I'm not going to give you any context because the quote's good enough by itself. He says this: the question is not how far. The question is, do you possess the constitution to take it as far as it needs to go? I love that. Because he basically says, well, that's the wrong question. How far? It's just the wrong question. No, the question is, do we have the passion, the endurance, the grit to do the thing that God's called us to do? Will we take it as far as God wants us to take it? Can we even reach that? That's a better question than acting like we've hit some ceiling. That doesn't make any sense at all. Matter of fact, so I asked ChatGPT, it's my new assistant. I asked ChatGPT how many people in Wadsworth still didn't know Jesus yet. And I hit the deep research button, and it takes like 5 minutes for it to like do all this computing. And it spit back out at me that there are 11,922 people who don't know Jesus yet. Now, I don't think that's true. I think that's low. So ask me, when's enough, Adam? 11,922 more. That's enough, if you want a number. And then we'll just go to the next city. We'll find more people there is what we're going to do. Like that's the answer. The answer is enough is when we've reached all of them. Like again, the reason you wouldn't ask it of Red Cross or St. Jude's is because you understand that the mission keeps going. Well, the mission is going to keep going. We're not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. Never going to stop pressing. We're never going to just say we're good. It's either 11,922 or if you hear a trumpet from that general direction and the sky splits open and God steps, and then we'll call it then. We'll be good, okay? But until that time, or 11,922 more, we're not stopping. We're not. There is no such thing. There's no such thing as too many people coming to know Jesus. I will fight you all day long on that. There's no such thing. And we are going to be a part of that. Did you know this church almost didn't make it? We had a near-death experience. It was almost exactly 14 years ago. So I became the lead pastor at 27 years old. 1 star, do not recommend. At the time, it was called Grace and Truth Church. I took over from a really awesome guy named Rick. And I was 40 days into being the lead pastor. 40. And things were not going well. And I know you're wondering, like, how do you screw something up after only 40 days? Skill. I don't know. It was really good. But one of my solutions to this disaster was I wrote a letter. And the title of the letter is To Those Who Are Committed, which is already passive-aggressive, by the way. Implies that some aren't. But I want to read some of it to you. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And I just went, while I'm reading it, just keep in mind I was 27 when I wrote this, so it's 27-year-old Adam. Here's what it says. To those who are committed, there are some who say when things get tough, that is an indication that you are outside of God's will. They say that when things get tough, God is trying to get your attention and turn you in a new direction. They say when things get tough, God is basically telling you to give up. Do you want to know what I think of the people who say these things? They're cowards. Perhaps that is too harsh. Maybe they are just misinformed, or maybe they haven't read their Bibles very much. Passive aggressive again. Because when I look through the pages of Scripture, I see a whole horde of people whose journey with God got very tough, but they were in the center of God's will. Matter of fact, I might go as far as to say things getting tough was an indication that they were in God's will. Why am I writing this? Because things are tough right now at Grace and Truth Church. I'm not going to put a smiley face on and tell you everything is peachy. That would be dishonest. Plus, you're smarter than that. You know our problems. You can see what's happening. Our giving is down, our attendance is down, and we are struggling to fill gaps in our volunteer areas. It was bad. Look at what Paul says in Galatians 6, 9, and 10. Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who are of the household of faith. And then I continue, all caps, do not lose heart. Paul tells us to be patient because we will reap a harvest if we press on. God is not blind to the heart, sweat, and tears you have put into this ministry. He sees every sacrifice. He notices every minute spent in service to him. Be patient because the harvest is coming. That's you, by the way. Like the Galatians, we have a huge opportunity. We must understand this. Like a piece of marble in the sculptor's hands, this church has potential. We may be rough around the edges and lack form now, but the possibilities are endless. God is the master sculptor, and we are his assistants. We get to play a part in shaping this place to becoming what he wants it to become. That fact should ignite a pioneering spirit that I know dwells within you. It has been 40 days since Rick left. Things are tough, yes. We have a long road ahead of us, yes, but I want you to know we will get through this uncertain time. We will take this hill. We will turn this ship around. I believe God has plans for this church. We must not give up. We must not stop striving. Now, I wrote that and I gave it to anybody who would take it, I believe. And not as many responded to it as I had hoped. It didn't turn in. I thought I could fix it with a letter. 27-year-old idealist. Not everybody responded, but some did. Some did respond. And I want you to know something. The ones that did respond are the reason you're sitting here right now. They're the reason you're sitting here right now. Do you realize that you are sitting right now, you're sitting in someone else's sacrifice. You're sitting in someone else's generosity. You're sitting in someone else's faith. You're sitting in that right now. I went back and I was going through names and of people who got that letter and are still here. There's only 8 people 14 years later. I might be missing 1 or 2, but I don't think so. So I want to read the names, and I'm going to have those people, if they're here, stand up. I know a lot of them were at the 9 o'clock, but let me read the names. Ray Hunt, I know he's not here. My mom and dad, they were right back there at the 9 o'clock. They're not here now. Larry States. Larry's on the camera. Hold on. I'm not done yet. Larry's been standing behind that camera for longer than 14 years. Carol Goff, I think Carol went home. And then Ron and Jeannie Klinger. They're right back there. All right, now. I want to thank you. I want to honor you for making the sacrifices, having the commitment, the grit to be here and be a part of what God has been doing for all these years. It's crazy. You guys can sit down. Thank you, for real. It's amazing. It's amazing. I need you to see it. I need you to see it. So 14 years ago, the church was almost dead, and some people said, no, we're not going to let that happen, and we stayed, and we stuck it out, and we fought, and now here we sit 14 years later, and God's moving in people's lives, and things are happening, and it's amazing, and none of this would be happening if that hadn't happened. Now what I want you to do is I want you to think 14 years into the future with me from right now. Can you turn on the imaginations, and let's imagine 14 years into the future from right now? Imagine if we can have that same kind of spirit that they had. How many thousands of people could have a life-changing encounter with their Creator because of this church? Imagine how many hundreds could give their lives to Jesus and literally change their eternal destiny because of the decisions we make here and now. Think about this. The babies in the nursery right now, the babies, we'll be sending them to summer camp. And the moms are like, shut up. I know. Legit, they'll be getting ready to go to summer camp. Those middle schoolers and high schoolers over there, some of them will be pastors. Some of them will be worship leaders. Some of them will be leading kids ministry. They will be in it. They will be doing it already. And you could be sitting in a room, 14 years from now, you could be sitting in a room full of people who have a relationship with Jesus because of decisions we make today. That's crazy. I want to preach a sermon like this then, 14 years, remind me. I hope there are more than 8 of you. Matter of fact, I hope there's so many that I won't even be able to say names. I'll just say, hey, do you remember that sermon I preached 14 years ago? You're going to stand up. Mark this day. We're going to do it. And we're going to see how much God's moved, how much He's moved. So this sermon series is called 33 Degrees because 33 is the most important place on the thermometer. From ice to water, from solid to liquid, from death to life. Just 1 degree. 1 degree is transformative. And what I've been encouraging you, challenging you is for you to realize that you could be the 1 degree difference here and now. That your participation, your commitment could be the thing that takes us from solid and stuck to liquid and flowing. Our generosity sets the borders of what we can do. I heard a pastor ask his church. It was a really interesting question. It stuck out to me immediately because it was different than what you normally hear. He asked them, do you want to be part of something special or do you want to be part of something supernatural? I thought, ooh, that's a good question. See, because normally it's, do you want to be a part of something ordinary or something special? And it was like, special. That's obviously the right answer. But special and supernatural, it's a little harder. And I just want to point out, like, what's cool for us, we're already experiencing special. So if you choose special, this is it. We're experiencing something really cool here. I've told you for the past 4 weeks, this is so not normal. What we're experiencing in the church is amazing. I love this. It's already special. But I'm hungry. And the difference between special and supernatural is those steps of faith that you take where you have to take the step, like where if God doesn't show up, you fall flat on your face. That's the supernatural. God fills in those gaps. And that's the kind of step I want us to take today collectively. To say, hey, we're going to make some commitments because we want to take that step and we want to see God move. I want to be a part of something supernatural. So you probably got these cards on the way in. Matter of fact, I hope you got it before today. If this is the first time you're seeing this and you call Mosaic home, why haven't you been coming to church? We've been talking about it for 4 weeks. It's your fault, not mine. So these are our commitment cards. And last week, if you weren't here last week, I asked you to take these home, pray about it, talk to your spouse, and there's pretty much 3 options on the back. You're committing to start giving to Mosaic for the first time in a consistent way. You're committing to increase, or you're committing to continue to support Mosaic. And I just want you to know, by the way, if you already regularly, sacrificially give to this church, I want you to hear nothing but gratitude from me. Nothing but gratitude from me. That is awesome. I am incredibly, incredibly grateful for that. And God has used it to do some amazing things. But the way it usually works is the people who don't need to hear the sermon or hearing the sermon are convicted, and then the people who do need to hear it somehow find a way to weasel out from underneath it. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to make today kind of a day where we offered this to God. So what we're going to do now is we have some baskets in the front. We have some baskets in the back. The worship team's going to come up here and play. And I want you to be able to make this like a thing. I want you to experience this personal moment where you make a commitment to God. And pray while you're doing it, and use that imagination to see what God could do with this. Now, a couple little things. If you weren't ready to if you just now get his first time, you're like, I am not ready to make, I got to do some math. I get it. You can turn them in later. And if you already did it online and you still want to participate, just write your name and write I did it online, and you can participate in this, giving this to God, because I want this to be an offering. I want us to feel like, hey God, we're taking a step together here. We want to see you move. We don't just want to be a part of something special. We want to be a part of something supernatural. So if you need a card, there's some up here and some back there as well. But here's what we're going to do. The worship team's they're going to play. And during the song, at some point, I want you to come up and I want you to put your card in. And again, make it a thing. All right, stand up. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this past 14 years, how much you've done, how far you've brought us, how many times you've stepped in and moved in a miraculous way. Thank you for your Spirit moving through this place. People, eyes open, lives changing. Thank you for letting us be a part of that. I pray for us right now, Lord, that we would collectively have vision, that we would see that picture of 14 years from now, the things you could do, that we get to be a part of. The lives changed, the souls saved, from death to life, from darkness to light. Lord, I pray that you would make us hungry for that. Hungry, hungry, hungry for that. Thank you for everything you've done, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray.